yeah, happy Wine Wednesday. How's it
Oh,
going?
oh yeah, oh yeah. A really good one. Happy Wine Wednesday. Good evening, everyone. Happy Wine Wednesday across the country. Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club member. Here we are. Pearl Morissette Week. Carl's Wine Club top 10 wine of the year. Number one wine of the year here. We're celebrating greatness tonight. We're celebrating the finest of what Niagara have to offer. It's pretty exciting. We're
It
celebrating a
is.
new pack. We're celebrating a new selection. We're going to talk natural wine, wild fermentation, one of the top Chardonnay program across the country. So it's pretty interesting. Special guests coming our way in 15 minutes. So to all of you from Victoria all the way to Halifax, we want to wish you a great evening. 8 o'clock out east. It's 5 o'clock here. So, yeah, welcome. We have some great stuff coming. We want to chat about last week. We want to talk about our Members' Choice Award again to congratulate Pondview Bellaterra. Congratulate Black Market Wine Company for being voted by you, by the members, Winery of the Year, BC and Ontario, the first edition ever of the Members' Choice Award, top Winery of the Year. So yeah, happy Wine Wednesday. Hi, Mom. Mom's just tuning in. I love how bang on she is every Monday. Maman, un beau bonjour. Un beau bonjour à tout le monde en français à travers le pays. Tous les amateurs de vin canadiens, on vous souhaite la bienvenue. Ce soir, on jase de Pearl Morissette, un des joyaux de l'industrie canadienne du vin, un des plus beaux vignobles à découvrir, situé à Niagara. Le vin numéro 1 de mon top 10 cette année, le vin de l'année de Carl's Wine Club, le seul vin que j'ai donné un score, un rating plus haut que 97 points. La première fois depuis que je score les vins, un 98 points, ça n'est jamais arrivé. Donc, pour moi, c'est un des plus grands vins que j'ai vu, que ce soit international, que ce soit canadien, que ce soit n'importe où dans le monde. Pearl Morissette, la cuvée 19e Chardonnay 2017. Ce soir, on va parler avec Svetlana, qui fait partie de l'équipe de winemaker, de l'équipe de production à Pearl Morissette. Elle va joindre à nous à des alentours de 5h15. Donc, un beau bonjour à tout le monde en province, du Saguenay jusque dans la région de Hull, Ottawa, la région de Québec, tous nos amis de la région des vins de l'Estrie. Un beau bonjour en français. Ce soir, on se jase de Pearl Morissette, qui est propriété de François Morissette, un Québécois qui est allé étudier en Bourgogne, qui est allé travailler dans les plus grands vignobles bourguignons, Frédéric Meunier, des vignobles de grande qualité dans les grands crus bourguignons. Et François est revenu et a eu le backing financier d'un industriel de Toronto. Il a pu partir, Pearl Morissette. Donc, maintenant, Pearl Morissette sont propriétaires d'un des plus grands restaurants au Canada et les vins qu'ils font sont absolument sensationnels, des vins de fermentation naturelle, des vins qui sortent de l'ordinaire. Mais depuis que j'ai goûté à ça la première fois, je me suis dit, oh mon Dieu, on fait des choses de qualité internationale dans la région du Niagara. Puis Pearl Morissette est une des exemples les plus évidentes sur le marché présentement. Donc, on est en train de, cette semaine, Carl's Wine Club feature 7 vins de Pearl Morissette. Vous pouvez regarder votre inbox dans les emails qu'on vous a envoyés cette semaine, disponible dès maintenant. Okay, there's my spiel in French to start. Hey, let us know, where are you tuning from? Where are you across the country? Are you in Ontario? Are you in BC, Alberta? Where are you tuning in, and what in your glass today, because let us talk about a little bit before we let our special guests coming in. I would say probably in 8-9 minute time, we have a special guest from Ontario, from Niagara, from the winery at Pearl Morissette, who's going to join us. But before she joins, let me take you a little bit again into shipping company. Okay, I'm not going to go crazy again, but unfortunately, our shipment of Pearl Morissette has been destroyed. You got it. Not Pearl this time. Another different shipping company, because we tried them. We tried to try them all to see which one are gonna mess up the less, I guess so. Anyway, Pearl Morissette was shipped 2.5 weeks ago, and I didn't have a phone call. I had to call the shipping company, say, hey, my tracking numbers is saying held at the facility for now 3 days. So what's going on? What's going on with my package? And their answer was, oh, I'm sorry, sir, it's unsalvageable. I mean, what do you mean by unsalvageable? It's a, yeah, your package is no longer existing. It's been crushed. So lucky enough, we have another package from Pearl Morissette coming our way, all the way across the country, but it's not here yet. So tonight, because there's also another reason, because my business partner, aka my wife, really, really, really like Pearl Morissette. I don't know if you've been following us, you kind of know that we have a soft spot for Pearl. The stash is empty, completely empty, dried. So tonight we're not drinking Pearl Morissette, but we know a lot about the wines because we've tasted them all a lot. But we have another package. So tonight, what's in my glass? I have a Chardonnay and a red blend from the Golden Mile here in British Columbia, a 2012 Chardonnay from Tenhorn Creek Winery. So we've been tasting, because next week we're going to do some pretty cool stuff, like a now and then feature. What do I mean by now and then? Maybe I'm going to let that sit for a bit, let it marinate, let you think, but we're doing something pretty darn cool next week. So yesterday we stayed up pretty late. Maybe Mira has a couple pictures that she wants to show you a little later from us. Working a little late last night and doing some tasting notes, some pretty darn cool thing. So stay tuned. But tonight I have a 2012 Chardonnay and a 2018 red blend. We're going to feature a Magnum, an $80 Magnum 1.5 liter of the Creek next week. A really, really special wine. I just rated it 93 points this afternoon. So something pretty cool coming your way next week. So yeah. So no Pearl Morissette in our glass, but please let me know if you have some Pearl in your glass. Let us know, and from where are you tuning in?
Yeah, I mean, we had some a couple nights ago, Carl, but there was an issue with that too. That bottle disappeared so quickly once we opened it.
It's because of the poutine, right?
That was I managed to save a little bit for poutine for lunch the next day, but yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, the 18 is showing very well right now. If we talk with people at the winery, they would say let it sit for a couple more years, but it's really starting to come on its own. 17 Chard is just absolutely shining. It's like a diamond who's like under the spotlight and shining every way possible. So yeah, really, really special wine. Number 1 wine of the year by Carl's Wine Club. The only wine that I ever rated that high, 98 points. That's the top wine that I've rated ever. The Cuvée 19e Chardonnay. It's sold out. Yeah, you cannot even contact the winery and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. Can I please have some of that wine? No, they have all those 60 bottles set aside for Carl's Wine Club members, because we have pretty good thing going on with Pearl Morissette and their team. Big shout out to Milton, who is running the show out there and always taking very good care of us with the wine selection and always putting some great stuff. So if you look at this week, what we're doing this week, there's 4 wines on the feature pack, on the exclusive feature pack. That's what we're doing. Or not available anywhere else but at Carl's Wine Club. Back to the library, we have the Lamberger. We also have the Oxid Riesling. What else was not available? Anyhow, we're gonna go wine by wine a little later with Mira after we chat with our special guest who is coming our way in 3 or 4 minutes time. So
awesome.
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I getting feedback? No. I just wanted to say, like, you chatted a little bit about it in French, but for those who have never been to this winery, it has this like 5-star restaurant on site as well. So I'm thrilled to go visit soon. And I've never been there, but it seems to me like this is exactly the kind of thing that I would fall in love with, because I love their wines already. So I'm super excited. One sec.
Yeah, Cedric is around. We have Deadpool here walking around. I think he needs something. So Mira, go ahead. Go help Cedric. But yeah, no, I was there personally at the winery back in September, and I had the chance to do the garden tour. The garden tour was special. There's something pretty unique because at the winery, for the restaurant, they do everything obviously from scratch, but everything is from the farm. Everything. What's in the plate, the vegetables, and everything is biodynamic, everything is organic, everything is sustainable. Anyway, the garden tour was pretty darn cool. I still have some pretty cool video from that and some pretty cool picture. We spent 2.5 hours touring the property. It was fantastic. We have someone here tuning in to hear more about the Lamberger. Yes, the Lamberger. We're gonna chat about it with Svetlana in a few minutes when she will join us live from Niagara. So I can't wait to chat a bit about what they're doing. The Lamberger is a classic German grape who grows a lot more in the Rhine Valley in Germany, and very rare, fairly rare around here in Canada. And Pearl Morissette is one, not the only one, but fairly a rare one to work with Lamberger and do a single varietal Lamberger. So it's a unique type of grape. They're doing it in a luscious way, something fairly like medium body, juicy, and it's something really, really, really cool. I absolutely love that wine when I went to the winery last summer. So yeah, I can't wait to get my pack so I can open it up and talk more about it. But unfortunately, not this week. But we have someone who's coming to the rescue from the winery. She's going to be with us in a few minutes time, so I'm pretty excited. Another member says love the Oxid Riesling. Absolutely, the Oxid, the value proposition, the wild ferment brings such a different caramel sweetness. The blend, the Riesling in there is just showing what Niagara is all about. So a real cool wine here with the Oxid. And,
yeah, that's Vicky, by the way. She's in the
it's Vicky. Group. Here you go. Here you go. Thank you, Vicky.
And we all know Vicky likes some Syrahs and some Rieslings. Hey, that's awesome. Thanks, Vicky. Yeah, I also oh, Vicky, not sure why. Yeah, it's in the private groups. They Facebook has these settings, and you have to like give permission, and it's sorry. That's why your name doesn't show up sometimes, guys. But yeah, I actually wanted to look what I found, Carl. I don't know if you guys remember this, but the first time that we tasted Pearl Morissette, we were live. And so you'll have to cover your ears if you're, sensitive, because there is some swearing here. But this is what happened the first time.
Thanks for the disclosure in advance.
Well, this is announced me lots of minerality, and there's a lemon zest also. And I see Mira here, like she like
I can't wait for you to try this. But I am still getting the white flour that you're talking about, like some kind of delicate kind of white flour on the nose. I've had 2 sips now, and I'm like, wow, I think Carl's gonna like this one. I like it. At some point, when we meet people in person, you guys get to see the real Carl at some point, because I'm pretty sure he censors it a little bit. But yeah, sometimes your expressions, Carl, when you're not being recorded, are priceless. I love it. So
holy shit!
There you go.
Shit. Okay. This is young. This still in his this is still so energetic. It's still like pushing acidity, that lemon zest. But in the middle, this is more like lemon meringue. It's definitely more lemon meringue in there, with maybe like a slice of fresh ginger in the middle. Call this.
Wow. I remember vividly this exact minute when I tasted it for the first time. I'm looking at it and I have the flavors in my mouth. It's crazy.
Yeah. Vicky's saying that's the longest tasting ever live. I think that we tasted the Pearl Morissette before Chardonnay Day. I think that was like what we just watched was before, and then we had it again on Chardonnay Day with 23, 26 Chardonnays from across Canada.
No, but that was way before that, because we did an offer prior to that when we used to be in Calgary still. So it was prior to that, because I seen that office when there was the office in the basement in my Calgary house. So anyhow, I see we may have someone in the green room here.
Yes, Svetlana's here. Let's let her in.
Hello,
Svetlana. It's so nice to see you.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, thank you for stopping in. How's it over there? Did they finally clear the roads?
They did. Like, even though I'm still at the farm, I was supposed to be home, but I'm still at the farm. But that's because personal responsibility over here. We were tasting a lot of blending trials today. He just preparing for the bottling that's coming in May and making some decisions. So nice. I'm gonna stay in, just to make sure that I'm on time, and I'm very excited. Hello, everyone.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. It's really, really exciting.
I'm so excited. Let's
Yeah, someone who's as excited as I am. I love it. You're already my favorite person on the planet. I love it. Hey, I won't let Mira start, Svetlana, because I think you and Mira have something in common. So Mira, go ahead.
Yes. So I used to vacation in Bulgaria, and I think I was reading about you. And you grew up in Bulgaria, right?
I did. I only moved to Canada when I was 18.
Wow. So I grew up in Romania. Okay. And I was very jealous of the Bulgarians because you guys had bazooka bubblegum. And I remember it had the little cartoon strip inside, and I loved it. You couldn't get that in Romania, so that was the highlight.
It's so funny because Bulgaria, it's one of those countries that nobody really talks about, but everybody that I've taken over, including Francois. Francois's been with me twice to Bulgaria. Is just like, what is this place? Absolutely amazing. Between the wine, the food, the hospitality, like everything, and like I don't like to talk about it only because I sound like a broken record, and even people here at the restaurant, like I taste the dishes because I train them on all the things, and they're like, like I taste something, and before I say anything, they're like, "It's very good, but it's not like it was in Bulgaria." And I'm like, yeah. And then when Francois came back, they're like, "Okay, so what's the deal?" And he's like, "She's right."
Oh, that's great.
So I'm so excited that you were able to experience that. And
Oh yeah, like our family had vines in the north of Romania for a long time, and they were selling those grapes actually to the French for many years.
yeah,
And then the French would just say that it's French wine because, of
that
course,
is one thing that nobody knows, and it's very rarely discussed. But most of the quote unquote French oak comes from Bulgaria and Romania. People
Yeah.
buy oak from there. Last time Francois and I were there, we went around and like talked to a lot of coopers, and they're like, yeah, the French just come buy like, you know, the barrels and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and put, you know, their stamp on it and sell them as things, like, because the quality is really high, the prices are way lower, and they're like, yeah, they sell them as French stuff, but it's actually sourced from here. And
Yeah.
some of the things that people don't know is that the biggest oak reserves in the world are actually in Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, Romania, and Russia.
Yeah.
And most of the quote unquote French oak actually comes from Eastern Europe.
Ah, that's fascinating. I knew that a lot of French wines are actually from Eastern Europe, and they just put, they bring it in, they put in some French labor, which is very expensive, and suddenly it's French.
There's an incredible amount of
Mario's saying, please don't tell me the Eiffel Tower is Bulgarian too. The steel might have come from
no, I wouldn't say that, but you never know.
Well, you guys have seen that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, right?
Yeah.
And that guy, he's convinced that everything is Greek, right?
Exactly. Oh, the Greeks.
A lot of like the Romanians are the same. I don't know.
This is one thing we all agree on, which is a huge thing because Bulgaria, Romania, Greece, Serbia never agree or anything apart from two things. That one, Macedonia doesn't exist. And two, if you exclude Greece from that thing, is that the Greeks are just like way too high on themselves. Like this is the one thing that all the Balkans agree on. So there is some sort of consensus, like even in between those few countries. But it's fascinating because technically, and I remind everybody here, that civilization, just like fermentation, spread from the east to the west. So there's a lot of old traditions, and very honorable and rooted ones in all of those countries that people don't think about too much. But interestingly enough, if you're looking for quality, and Georgia's made a great case for itself, like this is where you need to go. Like it's Georgia, Armenia, Bulgaria, Romania. And if you even look at the British press, like the British press covers that extensively, like how much quality it's coming out of these countries, because there's so much old vine material and there's so much rootedness still to the traditions of yore that influences and inhabits the people that work in modern times, and the quality that comes out in like $20-25 bottle wines from those parts of the world is stupendous. Absolutely stupendous.
So speaking of world-class wines,
Yes.
you saw our reaction, or at least Carl's reaction, the first time we took a sip of the Cuvée 19e 2017 Chardonnay. And you have been with Pearl Morissette now for quite some time. So tell us a little bit about, what makes this winery stand apart? How did they pull this off that we had this wine where we went, whoa, this is not like anything we've ever had and we love it?
So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background, which is like I used to be a sommelier for many years in Toronto. And the only person I always like, Francois always says like the biggest account, but I'm like, it's one of two. Like that poured Pearl Morissette in 2011 and 2012 when nobody even would look at those wines. They were way too
above their time, People could not understand what was in the glass back then.
Yeah, they didn't know, and even and that Francois would be the first one to admit included him, because I just stumbled on here, tasted the wines, and I'm like, oh my god, what is going on there? And it's not that I had the knowledge at the time or anything of that sense. I was like, this tastes like real wine, like the wines I'm used to taste. I'm used to tasting from back home and so on and so forth. And ended up pouring them by the glass, and within a year ended up joining here, and now I'm one of we're 4 partners that we own the winery, and we're trying to grow it. But what is absolutely intrinsical to Pearl Morissette is a dedication to no compromises, to actually understanding what Niagara is all about. Because there's a lot of different narratives about Niagara, whether we're like Burgundy when it comes to Pinot Chardonnay, and we're like Germany when it comes to Riesling and so on and so forth. But I find that slightly confusing. Well, not slightly.
A lot.
I find that completely ridiculous. Because it's like the whole intention of terroir is to be singular and original. And we're lucky enough to inhabit an area and an environment that has an immense viticultural potential, and produces wines that are intrinsically original, that are a reflection of that place. So the idea that quality should be associated to resemblances of places that are established references like Burgundy, Moselle, whatever it is, it doesn't sit well with me, because I always say it's not like the monks woke up one day in Burgundy or in Germany and said, Pinot Noir it is here, Chardonnay it is there, Riesling it is there, and it's like this is the Grand Cru and la. It's exploration, understanding what it is, working year in and year out, understanding how to dance with nature, and then through your own sensibilities, aspiring to elevate that through your human focus. So this is what we're trying to do here, because Niagara has a very, very particular signature, And no, it is not like Burgundy. And no, it is not like the Moselle. And
Because it's Niagara.
it is, and that is it. It is so different. But Pearl Morissette traditionally has been quote unquote punished for it because like, oh, those wines don't fit. I'm like, don't fit what? I remember talking to Master Sam one day and tasting one of the Rieslings, like which in our case are completely dry, where in Niagara all the Rieslings are made with residual sugar and so on and so forth. And he's like, "Fuck, like, sorry, like."
No, go ahead. You're not the first one, and it's not the first one who went out tonight. I already broke the ice a couple of times before you came in, so we're
Perfect.
good.
Love it.
We're good.
Yep.
We're good. That's how kind I am. That's how kind I am.
Thank you for that work, Carl.
I'm French.
And
I'm French Canadian though, just like François.
perfect. And he said to me, it's like, I just don't get it. I'm like, okay, so is the wine good? Yes. Like, is the wine biomolecularly stable? Like, doesn't have any flaws or whatever? Yes. And I'm like, is it balanced? Yes. I'm like, so what's the problem? And he said, I just cannot place it.
Ah,
And I said to him, oh, that sounds a lot like a personal problem, not not the wine's problem itself. And this is the thing, it's like, just because you cannot place something, all that means is that that part of the wine book hasn't been written. Maybe it's being written right now. But if you don't have the capacity, I mean, like, he had the capacity, but if you don't have the openness to understand that quality does not mean resemblance, like, I
That's
don't
true.
know what you say to you. Like, originality, when it comes from a very anchored place, and that anchored place is having the most intelligent response to the environment you inhabit. That is exactly how terroir starts. That is exactly how terroir started in every single place around the world. And that's where I'm like, it's not like the monks woke up one day and decided this and they decided that. It's through observation, deduction, and continual work. That
Consistency year in and year out. You're right.
exactly. And there's like the other story that I like to tell, just to give people a perspective, where if you think about the career of a winemaker and a career of a bread baker, or, people working with like natural things, like in a career of a bread baker, let's say you work 5 days a week for however many years, that's hundreds and thousands of tries from which you have the results and you experience those results in real time, 1 to 2 days. And if you want to see how your bread ages, it takes a week. So that over the course of a 50-year career, that's millions of lessons that you're able to learn. In a 50-year career of a winemaker, you got 50 tries. That is it, and that is all. And those lessons that are there, you cannot learn as immediately as like you think you would be able to, because you make the wine, you put it in bottle, and then it's on its own. Me and Francois just shared a bottle of 2011 rosé that was drinking like we were absolutely speechless. That bottle in 2013 and all the years between 2013 and now told us completely different things, and now it's telling us something very, very, very singular 10 years on. But if you don't wait, if you don't understand it, and if you don't examine, you would never know all the lessons that this bottle carries.
And also there every year that bottle is making history, because
Exactly.
it's never going to be repeated the same way. Even if some vintage are similar, Mother Nature are never gives you the exact same thing with many different challenges on a yearly basis. So every bottle are making history every single year.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. It's like every year you're challenged to be beginner, to be in kindergarten. Like you forget everything you know, and especially in a region like Niagara. Because imagine, like in regions, like I mean, things are changing now, even in established regions because of climate change. But even in a region like Niagara, like they're like we are like at most like the oldest vines here are about 50 years old, and serious wine making to be spoken of is at most like 20, 30 years old. So there's zero references to the past, especially considering the way we work with no interference inside the wine, no nothing, no trying to emulate and imitate, but trying to uncover the region. So you don't even have any guiding lights. The guiding lights that you have are the ones within you. Like when we walk the vineyards in between, like, you know, like the times of harvest and taste, everything that we rely on is ourselves and our best guess of what we can do, what we understand from the immensity that's given to you. And trying to take all of that information and fold it into a mold, I mean, I guess it serves people in the short term, but this is not how we operate. We operate on the exact opposite way. We take all that information and we flow with it. In Bruce Lee's terms, like just try to be like water. Try to embrace the balance of the vintage and try to activate your best guess, because it's always a guess of
Always.
what the best balance of that vintage is, and run with it, because that's how you uncover the true identity of something. And that's what we're here for. That's what we believe in, and neither Francois nor me would have it any other way. Like it's
And what I like the fact that you guys are so tied with the terroir, in a sense that you guys are writing the history year in and year out. But there's and you mentioned it earlier, people have a hard time to place the wine. What makes your signature? What makes the Pearl Morissette so unique? To me, when I taste the wine, why I'm such a fan, it's the wild ferment. I can taste that. To me, it brings, especially in the Chardonnay, it brings that sweet caramel. It brings it's like some very, very typical classic notes that I've always looked for. So what makes your signature? What is the Pearl Morissette stamp that you say, Carl, I think that's what we're working with on a yearly basis, and that's what we try to accomplish?
so process is definitely one of our mainstays. Like, and by process, what I mean is 100% what you mentioned, Carl, which is the wild ferment, no filtering, no fining, no interfering with the processes in the wine that are taking place. Because fermentation is a natural process. Like if we are to go in the cellar, you see, like for example, in 2021, all the wines finished, meaning they went through their alcoholic and malolactic fermentation before Christmas, which was a crazy thing for us because normally they would go until April and May, and this is the year. That's how they behaved. We
So you're
never.
telling me that every single wine you've produced in 2021 have gone through the whole fermentation yet?
Yeah, they're
Huh.
all.
Wow,
There's
because
wines, like this is the craziest things. Like the craziest thing, we have Foudre, which is like
Yeah.
a vessel that we ferment things in. One of them is 2020 this November, and the other one is 2021 this November, side by side.
the 2020s they're still working on and the 2021 is completed. That's crazy.
And this is the miracle of nature, and you don't know why. It's your job to understand why, because you have not done anything different. But that is the season, which in turn influences what's happening in the vineyard, in the grapes. And we have a 2020 Chardonnay that still has 4 grams in it, and you see the fermentation chart. It's like boom, boom, like very small little half a gram of sugar every like month. And
Yeah,
then
every
the
5 weeks.
2021, it's dry. It's 1000% completely fully dry. And you're like, why? How?
Wow.
You don't know. We don't know.
And you tell me that these food are side by side, right?
They are side by side. We put them side by side because we wanted to influence the 2020 chart. Hopefully to just like pick up the vibes from the 2021s.
Yeah.
But every single one of those vessels has its own like path, and they
Wow.
follow it. And we will probably, like not probably, like very likely, like 99% likely, bottle a 2021 before the 2020. But this is how you respect nature, and you respect what nature has given you in that year. This is that understanding of letting go of control. Because
Yeah.
true craftsmanship when it comes to winemaking, ultimately, like that's one big difference between winemaking and a lot of other crafts, that you're working with unpredictable forces, like i.e. nature, and you never know what will
That
happen,
is
how
crazy.
the season will be. And then your job is to do your best to let go of your predetermined ideas and follow. Just follow and see. Because I love this quote by Richard Feynman, who is like a great physicist, MIT professor, and he always said that the imagination of man can never rival the imagination of nature. And what makes Pearl Morissette wines, it's not that we follow certain processes. Process is part of it, 1000%. But beyond process, there is that letting go and saying, we are not going to impose in any way, shape, or form. We're not going to control. We're not going to mold you. Our job is not to make Niagara Chardonnay tastes like Burgundy and Niagara Riesling tastes like Moselle. Our job is to uncover what Niagara is. And in order to discover this, we have to follow the wine. And you figure out that, like, the wine, like, nobody will teach you that. The wine will teach you that.
And you also, you also work with different part of Niagara. It's not like you only work with the estate vineyard. You guys work with some Lincolnshire fruits.
Yeah.
You work with different part of the whole appellation, right?
Yeah, we like so where I am right now is on the home vineyard where the estate is, and that's considered creek shore. So it's in the lower part in Niagara, and like here we have our home farm vineyard, which produces like produces wines that are quite particular because they're on gravelly soil and they're planted. We planted them in extremely high density in order to balance the vigor within the soils.
A little bit like they do in the Piemonte, right? If you look in the Barolo region, they plant the vine really close to each other, so
Yeah,
high density.
yeah. It's like to my knowledge currently, and I may be wrong at this point, but like as of 3 years ago, that was true. This is the highest density plantation that exists in the country.
Wow.
So, and the whole idea behind it is this is going to be a little bit nerdy and apologize for that, but people talk about green harvesting where you snip bunches in order to concentrate flavor in the remaining bunches, and that is fine and dandy in many established vineyards across the world. But when you're working in a very new region and in a region that actually naturally has a lot of life within the soils, though the vines want to express. And one way for them to express is always to produce a lot of fruit, which obviously reduces the flavor within the berries. So competition is generally quoted as the thing that creates concentration of flavor within wines. Here, in order to create competition, you cannot rely on poor soils like the European rhetoric is. The only way to create competition is through very close plantation where the competition exists because there's so many different plants per square meter that they can absorb the vigor within their soils and concentrate the flavor within the grapes. And for a winery like ours, that does not include, this is the thing, like going back to your question about processes, we do not include, like, we do not put anything in the wines. And not a lot of people may have been aware about this long term, but like over 200 different additives are allowed, permitted to be in wine. It's the only beverage in the New World that does not require a listing of ingredients. And I always say, if transparency in wine labeling was a thing, it we would inhabit a completely different world. Because if people know what actually goes in their wine, and again, those are not harmful things. Those are not things that will attack you or whatever. But like when people talk about sulfur allergies and this and that, most of the time it's not a sulfur allergy. Most of the time it's an allergy towards one of those other 200 ingredients that's being used to shape your wine and make it taste a certain way. Here, we don't do anything in it. In our wines, there's just grapes, zero additives, and as little sulfur and as late of an addition as possible. And even by the regulations of the most stringent of quote unquote natural wines in the world, which is Vin Nature in France, that requires 30 grams per liter of sulfur. Like we're like the most we have is 10 at most.
Wow.
So it is honoring those processes, allowing the wines what they want to be and need to be, and following them along. That allows us to uncover now, 15 years in, what Niagara truly wants to say. And to me, that is the beginning of terroir. And there's no shortcuts. The whole idea is like, as I was saying before, we're like Burgundy, we're like the Moselle. That is like a simplistic and aspirational understanding of what Niagara truly has to offer. Because the idea of singularity is in hard contradiction towards that. If you are like someone, that means you're not really singular.
You're not really yourself.
Yeah, but like if you are doing what you're doing, and we like, this is the funniest thing. Like we export so many wines, and like such a large volume. Like if we wanted to, we can export all the wine across the world, and people are like, in Germany, taste the Riesling. And when I go there, or like Francois goes on, like we're on business trips, the most often heard comment is like, we didn't know Riesling can do this, or we didn't know Cabernet Franc can do that in France. And we always say, it's like, it's not us, it's Niagara. And those same wines here get the response like, oh, it's not like Germany, or it's not like France. While Germany and France are saying, it's like, thank you for showing that side of the grape. And that side of the grape, it is the singularity of Niagara. And we've been known as rebels. We've never aspired to be so. It's always been like, we just do what we do. We honor the wine. What the wine wants to be, it will be. We don't interfere with it. We don't mold it. And if it resembles something that great. And if it doesn't, even better.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a risk though, right? When we talk about this, there's huge risk. If many of our star producer, quote unquote, always like their wine tastes the same year in and year out, it's because they're using a lot. They're using a lot of help around what they're doing, and consistency is kind of their card in their back pocket. But what we do, I think that's the crazy part of what you guys do. It's the risk. It's a risk. It's a darn risky proposition.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like we were just like today, we were tasting, Francois and I, the 2021s, which is a vintage like we've never seen before. It was a heartbreaker of a vintage. Very, very, this is that's why we actually we're not that active on social media, because it gets kind of boring to be like, oh, it was tough, but all the wines are great, and so on and so forth. 2021 took every single little drop of blood and sweat from us to figure out, through hopefully the information that we've acquired over the years, how to make wines of resilience, stable wines, transparent wines, eloquent wines, without interfering with them. And what those wines look like, it's something that we never encountered. We taste them, and it's like, oh, you're meeting, and in Niagara, the vintages vary throughout, but 2021, and I've been here since 2012, 2021 is year like no water. so challenging in the most heartbreaking of way. But the wines that are emerging are just little creatures that we're only about to start to get to know. That being said, the year before, 2020, same vineyard, same everything, produced wines of such immensity, such profoundness, such long life that as like none of them are bottled yet. But I was tasting them today and I said to Francois, whenever the top cuvées, the 19e, the Black Bull, 19e Chardonnay, Black Bull Riesling, Madeleine Cabernet Franc get into bottle, and if I have them in front of us and I taste them together, I think I'm just gonna short circuit and explode into like glitter. I don't know that I can take this because that's my taste, like that profound, deep structure. But on the opposite end, you have the 2021s that are just these beautiful ballerinas of a wine that are giving, generous, expressive, and their beauty is in their crystallinity. So, can we take one and make it look like the other? Like maybe with a
Why
lot of
would you do that?
exactly. We would never do that. We would absolutely never do that because every single vintage teaches us something profound about the environment we inhabit. And here, if I have to summarize what we do, is try to do or try to have the most intelligent response to our environment year in and year out. So 15 years in, we hope we have a lot more intelligence about what we're experiencing than 15 years ago. That being said, nature surprises you all the time. And outside of the challenges that you encounter in the vineyard, like observing those processes, having a Chardonnay that's 14 months into fermentation right next to a Chardonnay that it took 2 months to ferment, you're like, how? Why? What is going on? And your job is not to control, your job is to understand because that's what the wine wants to do. And as to the 2017, this November, that wine, I've been like, it's now long sold out. Like what you're getting, it's all library thing. Let me give you a little bit of context about the 2017.
Please, because this is the highest wine I've ever rated. I've never encountered anything like that in my whole life. I'm passionate of Chardonnay. For 20 years, I've been tasting Chardonnays from all over the world. And this one, and I think you saw my reaction the first time I had a sip.
I saw it and I was like, oh my
It's
God.
I couldn't believe what just happened. I was course circuiting, like it's crazy. But please give me some context here.
So two things, like we do really consider, like, okay, so Chardonnay is one of those grapes that by virtue of his eloquence and transparency, everybody in the world, including me, you, and everybody that's listening, can probably make a good Chardonnay. It's an easy grape to work with. It's a grape that adapts very well to a variety of conditions from the south of Sicily all the way to Denmark. No problem there. So the easiest job in the world is to make a good Chardonnay wine. Now, if you want to move towards great Chardonnay wine, that becomes one of the hardest jobs in the world. So for us, like we started with Chardonnay in 2008 and understanding how it behaves in here has been, because of the proficiency of Chardonnay, has been a much slower path forward than Riesling, Cabernet Franc, Pinot Noir, or any other grapes. But in 2017, I would say, I call it the new beginning. It's the all the back vintages of Chardonnay from 2016 backwards, they're profound in their own way. But 2017 is that new beginning of, we got you, we know you, we understand you. Like, this is how Niagara Chardonnay wants to be. So there is this, and Niagara Chardonnay, it's nothing like Burgundy. What you have, it's the signature of Niagara, which is this lushness, this beautiful spiciness. I mean, I'm sitting here 20 meters away from the vineyard, and 50 meters there's a peach orchard. So in terms of the climatic conditions, this is a region that is much closer to the Rion Valley than it is to Burgundy. And I've been to Burgundy many a times with Francois. It's like, apart from the geological, okay, there is a bench there and there is a bench here, we're much hotter here. So what you normally have is that juiciness you can bite into, that it's very prominent in grapes like Roussanne and Marsanne, but very not like Burgundy is going there now because of climate change, but it's certainly not what people think of when they think about Chardonnay from Burgundy. Apart from it, however, alongside that ripeness, and it's not a ripeness in the California sense of the word, it's juicy ripeness. There's this stream of acidity that keeps everything afloat,
alive, and like the energy in there, right?
There's so much vivacity. It's a wine that you can chew, but it doesn't weigh you down, and it's fascinating. It's so pleasurable. You just and
But Svetlana, I just, sorry to interrupt you. There's one thing that I noticed when I tasted side by side 16, 17, and 18. Yeah. And I'm so happy that you're telling me that 17 was the turning point, because I saw a stylistic change between 16 and 17. 17 and 18. 17 and 18, I see in the 18 the same potential, the same depth, the same hole in there that I can swim so deep and keep getting some stuff deeper and deeper. I didn't found that in the 16. So I'm so happy that you confirm what I saw when I tasted them side by side.
1000%. It's we just released the 18 in November, and 18 is a vintage. 17 is a very serious vintage, but it's a very it's a very generous one. Just meaning that it's one of those vintages that doesn't have any attitude problems. Since the moment of its bottling, it's always shown something. And recently, in the past year, it's been I open sometimes, because again, I don't open it often because it's a library wine right now, but I open it sometimes and it's
I know, it's absolutely crazy.
Holy.
I know.
What is going on there?
I have to jump in because I so agree with you, Svetlana. And I mean, we kind of moved on from Bulgaria, right? As Mario asked a question earlier, he said, have you brought any winemaking techniques or ideas from Bulgaria over to here? Now he's asking another great question. If there is a varietal that you want to bring to Niagara, and if so, what is that?
So, well, we've already started working, like, funnily enough, with another Eastern European varietal that's not necessarily Bulgarian, but it is Eastern European. And the way we stumbled on it was like, we always just, like, this is the thing, like, grape varieties in and of themselves matter, but they don't really, because all they are a connector between the soils and the climate. So if in a tough vintage you go and walk a vineyard and you see a grape variety that's doing well despite all the challenges, this is nature telling you, look right here, this is what belongs. And in 2018, for us, that was Lemberger, i.e. Blau Frankish, with just one, like, it was this, like, family of Slovakian farmers. Francois is absolutely convinced that they agreed to sell us the grapes because I'm Bulgarian of the Eastern European connection. And I'm like, okay, thanks for the compliment, but
hey, it could be.
Who knows? But we've been so enthusiastic about those grapes, about that variety, Lemberger / Blau Frankish, because 18 onwards, 18, 19, I mean 20, not as much, but 21, all of those have been extremely challenging vintages. And that little vineyard in the middle of nowhere, from young vines, where everything around it is dying from disease and it's grown organically the way we do, has no issues. And that is like it's not magic. It is the magic of nature, where, like, again, nature is telling you, oh, you may think Pinot, you may think this and that. Like, look here. Look at how 4-year-old vines can behave in a challenging vintage like this and not present you with any problems. So Lemberger has been a crazy revelation for us, to the point that we are we're planting some this year in our own vineyard.
And it's so cool.
It is
Amazing.
like, and that is like part of understanding, like, what Niagara wants to tell you. You may think Pinot, but come on, like, Francois is proficient in Pinot. Some of the best Pinot makers in the world that exist, that he's worked for them. Like, he knows Pinot.
And when you read François Frédéric Meunier, when you see the Meunier family attached to where in your resume, it is something pretty incredible.
Exactly. And you come here and you produce Pinot. I mean, the 2020 Pinot is outstanding. It's not bottled, but when you have something so outstanding that it moves you, and the last vintage that you've had something as outstanding made from Pinot, it's 2007. That's a huge gap, because no craftsmanship has been spared. And then alongside that, you have Cabernet Franc that he had never touched before. And year in and year out, regardless of the vintage conditions, and encompassing all the grape varieties that all the different all the different vineyards that we have, which are 3 right now. Cabernet Franc produces wines of excellence that are not like excellent by our own understanding only. They're excellent enough to be poured in Michelin star restaurants all across the world. And you can be like, Pinot, 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 which is the rhetoric about Niagara, You can be like, well, you know what? Like, here's that grape that we do nothing to, like in the vineyard, and regardless of the vintage conditions, it maintains its eloquence. It just expresses it in a different language, and it far outshines all sorts of other wines that are in the road, to the point where, again, when I say it's poured in the Michelin star restaurants, it's not poured as a house wine. It's poured at like premium prices right up there alongside the best Bordeaux, Loirs, and whatever in the world. Like, okay. And then you learn, okay, so we're a country, like, or we're a region that no matter what people say, Cabernet Franc is absolute king. I always say, if I want to be politically correct, I would say we are one of the top 5 regions in the world to produce Cabernet Franc. If I really want to tell you what I think, again, not being from here, so hopefully being a lot more objective than if I am from here, it is the top region for Cabernet Franc in the world. It absolutely is. Like, regardless of the vintage, Cabernet Franc here will produce wines of extraordinary quality, and it has the same eloquence that Pinot will have in Burgundy or Riesling will have in Germany. And like in terms of whites, Riesling is the grape, and Chardonnay is like a close second. And apart, like Lemberger is what we've certainly discovered, but I am definitely looking, like we're definitely looking more and more towards Eastern European varieties, like Dornfelder, but that's like pretty close to
Lemberger, right? But what's our member can expect when they pop a bottle of 2018 Lemberger? Which kind of is it a more of a full body, medium body? What's coming out of your Lakeshore Appalachian vineyard? Or I think it's the Lakeshore.
Yeah, it is Lincoln Lakeshore.
Lincoln Lakeshore, yeah.
Yeah, it is. So again, like that vineyard has very young vines, and the way we like treat the Lemberger, because you don't want to overstretch the young vines. This is something else that is very much kind of unspoken rule for us. The most serious of the wines we produce, which are the 19 that you have, the Black Bow Riesling and the Madeleine, we would never do anything to them to make them more approachable and simpler earlier. On the other side, when you have something where its character, it's all about vivacity and explosiveness and youth, like, that's what you capture, that's what you honor. So the Lemberger we always release in June after harvest so far, because again the vines are young, meaning those wines are about an enveloping perfume and easy drinkability with a lot of beautiful satiating quality, where if you want to do it with charcuterie, that'll go. If you want to even treat it as rosé, like meaning if you want to treat it as a white wine, almost like not having any tannin and having it with some oily fish like sardine or halibut, it'll go. If you want to have it with chocolate, it'll go. If you are relying on it to tell you the meaning of life, it won't. Like I mean, unless you drink a case, but then it's not gonna be the wine talking, it's gonna be you. It's not a wine of profound complexity. It's a wine of joie de vivre. Like that's
it's a wine of joie de vivre.
has been for us. As the vines age, we don't know where it is going to take us, but I drank more of that wine than I drank rosé this summer. Like, and I'm continuing to drink it again. This is another sold out wine, and it's only our second. Like, now we lease the whole vineyard, and they grow the fruit completely organically. The two Slovakian, it's a father and a son team, like, and they sell us all the fruit, because before that, what they would do is like sell that fruit to big wineries that use it in their Meritage slash Merlot Bordeaux blends, because Lemberger naturally has a lot of color, and it was just like a cheap way to augment.
To get the Meritage darker.
Yeah, and
To
you know what
pretend.
also that was amazing about this is like having these guys actually taste wine made from their own fruit and loving it was, on a personal level, a deeply moving experience. But that wine, you want a wine that you can drink while you're cooking, or you can have as an opening of the night, or you can have as a closing of the night. It has so much density of taste and flavor without any weight that I honestly think we should have only bottled it in magnums. And it drinks so easy. It drinks like boom, boom, boom. And I always say it drinks like water, but I mean that in the best possible sense, that it's hydrating rather than demanding, and it's satiating rather than like needing something from you. Like it's the perfect wine. I can't wait for like it. Like Lemberger is one of those grapes that we cannot wait. Like we kept one demi Mew, which is like double barrel of it, to continue aging and see how it develops with further aging. But that is one of our biggest obsessions that we would have never seen coming. Like,
That's amazing, because when I was talking with Milton, going back and forth with different options, and he sent me the Lemberger option, I was like, "Here you go. That's what I'm looking for. That sexy proposition, right? That one that it's going to be good, but how good?" So yeah, I'm so excited to hear you
I've
talking
got
about
to
it.
tell you, like all of the winery stuff here and the restaurant stuff and the garden stuff, that is their favorite wine. And when your order came through and Milton put it aside, they were all so heartbroken. So me and Francois keep like a small little library aside. And when there is a party and I bring one of those bottles, I'm the most popular person around, because they're all looking for that Lemberger because of all those qualities, and because there's no more. Everything is like it's allocated here, it's allocated there, and it's like it is the most unpretentious but the most satisfying bottle there ever is. Like
The
as I said,
most
like,
unpretentious, but the most I'm writing that down. The most unpretentious,
I think,
but the most
Svetlana,
satisfying.
you've said a few things tonight that give me shivers and that need to be written down somewhere. There's such great quotes. You're saying, Niagara is, may not be in the books because we're still writing that page in the book, right?
Yeah.
So it's so
Yeah.
exciting. It's amazing.
well, that is exactly it.
Svetlana, one thing that I want to do, because Mira and I should be in Niagara if all COVID restrictions starting to fall soon in April, and I would like for us to take an hour or two and go say hi to you and have a one-on-one sit down and chat longer, because I feel that we can do that for hours.
Yeah,
Amazing.
like an hour and two, it's like when you warm up.
Yeah.
So way longer. I think
Yeah.
it's like, so without sounding
Fantastic.
pretentious again, it's like when we were doing tastings before, and tastings here are a different ball game than the rest of Niagara, the way the rest of Niagara does them. But I always used to say to people, it's like, okay, you can start with Pearl Morissette. This would sound so bad. You can start with Pearl Morissette, but it's all gonna be a downhill afterwards. Or you can finish here as long yours not completely tanked in order to understand things if you want to understand things. Because this is what I don't like about the wine industry per se, that it currently exists in all these like predetermined little bites and forms, and it's like this is this and this is that, and that's how you drink it or that's what you do, which are valid, but ultimately what I've seen touches people, what has touched me, what true wine is about is the way it affects you, the way it brings out things out of you. And that is not my talent, that is not Francois' talent. Our talent is to not interfere. And when 9 out of 10 people consistently tell you, like now for me, like 10 years in, I don't like Chardonnay, but I love this, or I don't like Riesling, but I absolutely love that. That is not Pearl Morissette. That is Pearl Morissette not getting in the way of Niagara, not trying to make something out of it Niagara that it isn't. Because human intervention along the way shouldn't be about um, demeaning that absolute beautiful multiplicity that nature gives you in order for it to fit your predetermined idea of what Chardonnay or Riesling or Cabernet Franc should be. Like, like winemaking is like any other craft. Respect your material, meaning respect nature, respect your source, understand them, and take that material, take what nature gives you, and try to accompany it to a place of beauty that it would normally go to. And if like 15 vintages in, you're able to imbue a little bit of yourself in it because you understand it. It's like it's a small little prize. That is it. It's like you accompany, you do not impose. And the methods, like going back to what Carlos said earlier or was asking earlier about what makes the Pearl Morissette signature, that is it. The methods are there. But the methods are the ways, the processes through which we achieve that. It
You know,
involves a lot more work, and that's why we'll never be a big winery, because as Francois says, if we cannot taste any single vessel, and if we cannot stay connected with every single vessel, and like today, it took 6 hours to taste through all of the vessels of 2021. Like, you're not doing your work, because when you're working without controlling, it's a lot more. It requires a lot more attention, and you don't want to be that person that overreacts because the wine wants to go in a place that you've never seen it go before, like it's been happening with the 2021s. So that's when I say it's like the imagination of man can never rival the imagination of nature, and people normally paint that idea of quote unquote natural wine as if like you get the grapes and the wine makes itself, and all you do is like hold
Look
hands,
at it. Look
dance
at it and take notes. You look
around
at it and take notes.
naked with the like rain pouring on yourself. No, it's the exact opposite. It is you're so involved and so connected to the wines, um, and you use science. We use science here a lot, meaning like we constantly measure and so on and so forth. But you use it in order, you use it around the wine in order not to use it inside the wine, because that is the whole idea of accompanying something. It's you follow, you don't impose, and without sounding too hippie about it, like it's the only way to start the beginning of terroir. And going back to my story about the careers of a winemaker versus the career of a bread baker, like 50 tries in a 50-year-long career, much of them, we make wines like the 2020s are wines that will probably like neither me nor Francois, like they will outlive us for absolutely sure. So we're not going to be able to learn those lessons, but to leave a legacy.
And
And
these are tremendous legacy, because you know what? We're not in a 400 years old region. We're not in the Rioja. We're not in Burgundy. We are in a brand new region, and we are writing the pages every single year, where the people who follows us are going to take over after. That's the
exactly,
legacy that you are leaving to the next generation.
exactly. And this is the thing. It's like our society is such that it's getting like harder and harder to explain that there's aspects of the work that the way we work, slow gratification has to be accepted. Like easy gratification is not the game. The 2018 19 compared to the 2017, it doesn't give you like compare like right now side by side. The 2018 doesn't give you much.
Oh,
The
it gives you that much compared to the 17, just a smidge.
But technically speaking and spiritually speaking, like where the 2017 was a turning point and a vintage, like a wonderful, wonderful vintage. The 2018 is on a whole other level of seriousness and complexity. It's a more profound wine, but you have to wait for it. And people, generally speaking, these days are not used to it. Me and Francois, like, we'll drink that wine when we open it, like once open, a week in, with a week of decanting, because decanting is what it's speeded aging. You decant it and you allow it to breathe, and in a week you see how like all the layers in that wine. But it is like crazy, like it is. I mean, the 2020 is not bottled, but it is. The 2018 is our best achievement of Chardonnay, but it currently gives you no pleasure. But this is the thing, like learning that if you want profound, you have to have patience. If you want easy, it's more easily available. And like here, when it comes to our top cuvées, which are the, like, when it comes to Chardonnays or the 19, like, we are so lucky to have wines like the 2017, because for us it is like such a spectacular wine. Like, every time I open that bottle, I'm like, holy, like, I mean, I want to say holy moly,
Say it, please, say it.
holy fuck, what is that wine explodes. But that is also the vintage, the growing season, supporting our knowledge and allowing that wine to be as expressive as it is earlier on. Because for us, 4 or 5 years on from date of harvest, like, to have a wine as expressive, that is like friggin' like
It's amazing.
E train. Like, but then if you go to the wines that will live the longest, like the 2018, 2012 is another one. 2016 is a different one. They give no pleasure currently because they need to digest themselves. Like, and it will probably take another years until that they reach that point of grace that a 2017 naturally possesses. And when a vintage like 2017 comes around, like, we like are so thankful for it. Like, every single wine from 2017, from the moment of bottling, even when they're a little bit shut, they give you so much, they embrace you so much, they give you so much pleasure, which is the first and foremost, like, requirement that wine needs to give you, that you're like thankful for them. We are like, in November this year, we are going to release the Riesling of 2012. So it's taken 10 years for that Riesling to be released. Not because the wine wasn't good or whatever. It was so magnanimous that in order to achieve that state of flow and pleasure, it took it 10 years. And this is a wonderful thing to say and a beautiful story, like, when I say it like that. But let me tell you, from a business perspective, when you have to sit on a wine for 10 years because you're dead, and it's like, the Bourguignon do that all the time. You taste a young, serious Burgundy, pardon my French, they taste like shit.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Yes, they do.
And acid. And people are like, oh, just let it be. And nobody questions it. And, like,
And I think it's the same thing with the Riojas, right? Like, so many of these Riojas are like, oh my God, really? That's what I'm getting? No, same thing with the Barolos. Now Barolos are getting a little bit more modern, but like back 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't taste a Barolo, a decent Barolo, younger than 10 years old. It's just how it was, right?
There's no pleasure with it. And when you go to those places, nobody would serve you a young wine. You serve young wine to professionals in order to get their feedback, but you don't serve young wine around the table, because the more serious the wine is, the quieter it is in their youth. And vintage has a huge role to play in that. But now we've embraced, like to me, it's like, sometimes, like, when I go and I taste, like, fancy dinners, all these crazy Barolos, Barbarescos, like Burgundies, and people pay top money for them, and so be it. But what you're paying for is the accumulation of knowledge, the reputation, that they've developed over the years.
Prestige.
Yeah, exactly. The prestige 1000%, the marketing that some of them involve. You don't pay for the most basic thing that the wine is supposed to provide you with, which is pleasure.
Enjoyment.
That is, to me, coming from a place where wine is a fine beverage, but its first job is to move you and to give you pleasure and to pay top dollars for something that doesn't give you that, or its potential to give you that is questionable, seems absolutely crazy. But that is how the wine world works now. And for us, thankfully, because of the young vineyards that are coming online and the Redfoot vineyard that we've started producing from since 2019, we can have wines like the Lemberger, the Ruslana, the rosé. We just finalized the blend for the next rosé, and I'm like so enamored with it. Um, it's, those are wines that don't don't deal in the world of the meaning of life, but they're no less satisfying. They're the wines that deal in the world of joy and possess the same beautiful balance of quality and satiation and complete how do you put, like they feed you, like they feed into your bloodstream, not in, I don't mean that in the alcoholic way, but I mean,
A sense of purpose.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, it's like, I always say, it's like when people are like, what's the trick of Pearl Morissette? Like, there's no trick. Like, all we want to do is discover and honor the balance of the vintage. And I know that's a very nebulous idea, because what is balance? And I say something that, well, probably a year ago, I read and I made the association with wine, which is the United States Supreme Court decision on the nature of pornography.
Please go. Please keep going. Keep
Yeah.
going. You're
Tell
getting
me
my
more.
attention here. There you go.
What it said, amazingly enough, for its pristinity, is that you cannot define pornography. You cannot say it's made out of this and this and that, because what is pornography to some, I'm just completely downplaying this, but maybe a Tuesday night for another person. But what I said, you cannot define it, you cannot put it in legal terms, but you know it when you see it. And here is the crazy jump that I'm making. To me, that is the balance in wine, and it's the balance in wine that feeds most people's souls and palates. You cannot define it. Here, people will tell you in Niagara that Riesling's balance is sugar and acid. Well, guess what? Our wines are very balanced when it comes to Riesling, and they're not based on sugar and acid. And there's, like, it can take all sorts of shapes and forms based on the grape variety, the vineyard, the growing conditions. I don't need to follow predetermined ideas of what balance is, because we'll know it when we taste it. And that's what we do. Like today, like 24 at least, if not more, like blending trials, we don't taste for how much that resembles such and such. We taste for balance. Does it have flow? Does it have that sense that nourishes and inspires at the same time? Because that's what wine is there to do. To
That's exactly what I experienced in the video earlier. You saw when I have the first sip of the 17 Cuvée 19e. That was that moment of, I
yeah,
knew it from the first sip, the first contact in my mouth. I knew something special was happening. I knew it. It's like when I met Mira the first time. And you go, boom.
yeah.
Ha!
That's what I always say.
It
When you meet
it
someone you're
takes a
supposed to meet,
lifetime
you
to
know.
discover why, and that's the same thing for us. It's like we know it when we taste it, but why it happens, we don't know. Like I only because of the 2017s, only because of the 2017s, I'm not understanding the 2013s because they're sort of a parallel vintage. But that's like, you know, 4 years in between of them of harvest and another 4 years like for us to be able to taste the similarities that are emerging. Like
You're
you,
writing the book. You're writing every page of the every pages of the book. So now you're connecting the first chapter to the second chapter. Isn't it not absolutely amazing? It's a privilege, right?
it is. It's definitely privilege, especially this time of a year when you're not losing your mind over all the but like we cannot do it any other way because again, like if you take your craft the way we do, which is not a craft of imposing but a craft of following, they're just like you have to let go, and it takes um subsuming yourself to a lot of anxiety, to a lot of not knowing, like doing your best guesses, trusting your intuition. But the one thing that I feel Francois and I, and I'm more than sure he will second that, we have in each other, like we have that feeling of we actually do not care what the outside world thinks about that. Because even me as a consumer, like 10 years ago and as a sommelier, like I know what it is to be the only person in Toronto pouring those wines and being called crazy. And I know what it is to be told by other Niagara winemakers who are close friends that natural fermentation that doesn't exist. 10 years later, all of them are doing natural fermentation.
At
And
least they try. At least they try.
That's
yeah,
the thing, they try.
exactly.
So this is something you've taught me, Svetlana, is, and I mean, Carl, you mentioned it earlier. Natural processes are more risky and they
Oh,
take more skill.
yeah.
That's what I've learned from you is that
Intuition.
intuitive
She just
sense.
mentioned it again. It's about intuition, right?
It's about intuition and about like craft. I have a friend who's a chef, and in the modern world, which is like absolutely valid in many ways, where you're all about like where we're all about like 100 kilometer and this and that and this and that. It's almost like ethics overrules everything. And I remember him saying something to me a few years ago where it says, ethics is not enough. Ethics does not make something good. You still need to have craft. And it was so simply said. It is the same thing with wine. Just because you subscribe to a certain type of ethics, that is true. Like, that is absolutely valid. Well, my first question is, do you live your life the way you farm your vineyard? how deep are your ethics? And then secondly, do you understand why you do what you do in the vineyard? Or is it, as the wine agents would come to me as a sommelier and like highlight all the key things, like with a yellow or red highlighter, and be like, oh, look at this. This is sixth generation organic winemaker, la 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 la. I'm like, I don't freaking care. Because like he may be sixth generation organic filmmaker and he still may be annihilating everything in the cellar because he's dumb, doesn't have the craft or whatever. Like, I don't need to see the notes. Pour the wine in the glass and let's talk then.
Let's
All
let it
those
be.
things, the wine will tell you everything you need to know. So don't spin stories, which the wine industry is so good at doing. Spin, spin, spin. Like, sixth generation of bad wine making doesn't make a good wine. It makes sixth generation of bad wine making. It's like as simple as that. It's like pour the wine and let's talk. Sixth generation of bad vineyard management, even though it's organic, because you can absolutely mismanage a vineyard with organic, like way more than you can do with a conventional, does not make a good wine. Pour the wine in the glass and then let's
Paul.
talk about it. And
Fascinating.
there's a winemaker like from his name is Oleg Bondonio Barbaresco. Like Francois and I were just talking about him because that like we've been buying it for the restaurant for a few years now. He's some like crazy snowboarder Italian Olympic champion, zero background in wine. His wines are profound. Zero, zero DNA when it comes to wine. But that guy, whatever he's doing, he knows how not to get in the way. Like, it's on nobody's radar because it's just this guy, like, making wine in, like, the very far north of Barbaresco. I, it's half the price of the most quote unquote on a adored wines in Piemonte, and what you get in that glass is like quintuple the amount of spirit profoundness and pleasure.
Enjoyment. That's what we're talking about. Enjoyment. And
And
Mira
what I
said,
love about what you're saying, Svetlana, is it leaves no room for pretentiousness and it
Exactly.
leaves no room for
fuck that, right?
silly rules. Like when Carl tasted the 19, the 2017, the first time, we have it recorded all because it was live. And after a few minutes, he kept talking about it and he went, you know what? This wine needs to be decanted.
Yeah.
Like he's listening to the
1000%.
wine. It's a white wine. Everyone was saying in the comments, like, really? You're going to decant a white wine? And it's like, yeah, you have to listen to it as much as you guys listen to it when you're making it. When we're drinking it, we also have to listen to the wine and to ourselves.
1000%. And that is exactly it. Like when you have people that have the knowledge to like pour it and say, okay, this is what the wine needs, or understand like, okay, the 2018 19, again, like currently, it's the most kind of self-effacing, ungiving type of wine, while within it, there's deep profoundness. And anybody that knows would be like, okay. And like when I write the newsletters, I tell people like, please wait, or if you have to drink it right now, just give it the time it deserves, because consuming it right out of the bottle equates to infanticide. Like why do that? Like there is no point for doing that. Those are wines that deserve your patience, that demand your patience, and all you're doing by consuming them easily is one, not honoring them, but Secondly, limiting yourself from profound pleasures that are destined to come your way. So don't do that. Like, these are the wines that you should cellar and or you should decant, whatever you choose to be. But when you open them right now, they're in stark juxtaposition in towards the kinds of wines that are flooding the market, which is easy gratification. There is nothing wrong with easy gratification, but I, to us, when nature gives us seriousness, which are privileged enough to receive from our 19th Street vineyard, we want to honor it because the experience that Francois and I had earlier today with a 10-year-old rosé.
It's spiritual. It
Yeah,
takes you.
it is.
It takes you to a place where it's something special. The place is special. The energy is special. Everything around becomes special.
Yeah, it's just you can dissect it, and we try to stay in the dissecting mode, but there's a completely different spirit that imbues you, and that's the spirit of old wine. Every wine, especially like rosé, 10 years old, and we make extremely, like, honestly, like, I don't know whether you had it or you have it now on the order, like the 2020 Ruslana, that wine, that's a light red wine. It's not a rosé, but that wine, as beautiful as it is now, we've kept it's like something like 20% library of it, because it'll only grow further and further and embrace you more and more, because nobody can, no winemaker can put into wine what time will give you. And
Ah,
one,
that's the best quote. That's the most amazing quote of the night. I love that. That's so true. Time, only time,
only time,
only time. That's something we cannot reproduce. We cannot copy. Time is time. That's it.
there are no shortcuts in that, and that's where you have to choose the wines that deserve your patience. But if you choose correctly, those wines will repay you in spades. And for us, like, being privileged enough to have access to material, meaning, our 19th Street, 19 Black Bows, Madeleines, and Pinots, that 10, 11 years, like the first vintage here was 27 Pinot Noir, and in white 28 Chardonnay. None of them are even close to rounding a corner, and being able to follow them and understand the wisdom they've developed in bottle. Those are processes. Imagine, without sounding again too hippie, it's like putting something in bottle and forgetting about it after you sell it out. It's like sending your kid to college and not seeing them for 10 or 15 years. And then when they come back, it's like, who are you? So what our job is here, it's like making sure that you give them all the principles and values in life that you hope will inform their decisions, but then you let them be. And then encountering those wines 10, 12 years later, it's, and seeing that they're not that disfigured or completely tired, like, by life, like most wines can be, but if anything, still vibrant, but telling you things that are much more eloquent than what they did in the early stages of their life. It's a wonderful experience. Wines cannot get there without structure to support them along the way. And for us, I always say, even our simplest wines, even the wines like the rosé, like it's not a simple wine, or the Lemberger. They're wines that are easily drinkable. But I have friends in the Toronto Sun community where I pour the rosé. They're like, dude, like we have red wines that are lighter than this bottle. It, and it's not about the color. It's about, when I like wrote not the last release, but the one before, it's like rosé is not a color, but a feeling. It is that beautiful thing that invites you to taste summer, but at the same time can carry you through, if it's serious and vinous the way we like them, into a lot more in a lot darker and colder times. Our restaurant uses the rosé all the time. The Lemberger, the same thing. It's easy to drink, but it's not a simple wine. So every single wine has its balance. It's our job to discover it, and our job to communicate it to whoever buys it. And we do our best to offer it at the quote unquote appropriate time. But when it comes to respecting the integrity and identity of those wines, the ones with the white labels, which are the 19s, the Black Bows, and the Madeleines, if you want to know who Francois and I truly are, this is us. Like, we'll always make a wine as serious as it allows us to do so, and not for any other reason, but because of that bottle of rosé that we had like a few hours ago. Because in 10 years, regardless of how long that wine has taken to tear down its walls and show you everything it's got, it shows you so much that you no longer care about the time that you've spent. And rosé, like the most difficult in that negotiation is the Riesling, but the Chardonnays for sure are way easier, and so is the Cabernet Franc. You know, the 18 Cabernet Franc that we just released in November, and the 18 this November. Like the 18 this November is a little bit more quiet, but the 18 Cab Franc, you want to drink it now, sure. Like it's so lovely, it's beautiful. But every time I drink it, it's one of those. It gives me goosebumps, not because of the experience in the moment, but because of the promise of the experience.
The promise of the future. And I think that's exactly my excitement too, when I try to project. And I do that a lot. I did that a lot with the 2018 Cuvée 19e. What will I get in 5 years? What will I get in 7 years, in 10 years? And that's where I get goosebumps. That's where I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be epic.
Oh yeah, 1000%. It's got like as one that like it's like the 2017 like blows my mind every time I open that bottle. And I'm so grateful from the 2017 vintage that we have something 4 years in that can blow my mind. The 2018 will absolutely like quintuple that. It'll just take it a way longer time.
Yeah, it's like it's like that. The 17 is giving you the hand of the story. Is giving you the story there, and the 18 is telling you, "Okay, go ahead, tell me the story yourself," because you don't know what's coming up. So, yeah, it's fascinating.
Like people are always, and even like I remember in the early days when People in Toronto were pouring the 19 by the glass, and they would be like, "Oh, the 2011 is not like the 2010, or the 2012 is not like the 2011." And by the end of that vintage, when we have no more to sell of it, everybody would be in love with that vintage, and they'll be like, "Oh, but it's not like the previous one." I'm like, that's exactly the point. So it's not the wine doesn't serve you. You serve the wine. So if you have to fit that wine in that space on your wine list, not it has to fit somewhere else. But understand that we would like to keep everything for 10 years, but we cannot. We still keep everything for way longer than any other winery would do. And we put it on the market only where me and Francois are like, okay, it's enjoyable. People can drink that if they want to, or they can cellar it. But understand that this is just the beginning. And then it's your choice what to do with it. And if you have any questions, please email me. Absolutely no problem. But like judging wines, and that's not only about us, but like me and Francois like taste a lot of wines from all over the world, and we get caught into that. Like, and we fill the cellar of the restaurant with a lot of other wines, and getting caught in the idea of like, hey, we buy those wines and we judge them the way they are, like right now. And the more serious the wine is, as I said, the worse it'll show. But as a winemaker, you taste it and you're like, the winemaking is good, the technique is good. Why does it show so bad? Show so bad. Just don't give it time. Then it's our responsibility to take that and put it aside and forget about it. And if you want to drink something, drink older vintages or drink wines whose um, MO is about giving immediate pleasure, like the Lemberger. Like,
Yeah.
like
That's amazing. I think Mira has a little something, and we have three boys here, and it's 7 o'clock. I think they're still waiting for their dinner.
And I think for you, I'm getting worried about you. Like Svetlana, you still have to drive home, and it's 10 o'clock. So
I'm staying in the farm today, but you know, like when you say like,
okay.
oh, just, but what I meant to say is like, okay, I have no problem talking for a long time about wine.
I love it.
Let me
We're
know if there are
so grateful.
questions. Because
Yes.
I know like we went through this November to quite a few existential aspects.
Amazing. And I feel like we can go on and on. So we have to do this again, hopefully in person. It'll be amazing.
Anytime.
In a nutshell, there have been some really great questions that we probably can't really get to all of them right now. In a nutshell, Vicky asked a good question earlier. You have your Black Ball Riesling, your Va-Vient, and your there's another one.
There's the oxide,
which is in our pack. In a nutshell, what's the difference between all those different ones?
Okay, so which vintage of the Black Ball do you have? The 2017?
She's just asking, I think in general. I think we might be talking about the 2015, but I'm not sure.
Oh my God. If you guys, like, if somebody has a 2015, like, that is one. Zero disrespect to 2017 this November, but the 2015 Black Ball, in mine and Francois' appreciation scale, it's one of the two best white wines we've ever produced. There is a huge, it's not a fight, it's constructive debate about whether it's the 2015 or the 2012 of the Rieslings that are, like, that's number one of the best wines we've ever produced. And I'm sure, like, I don't know, 30 years from now, we'll be in like adult diapers and still arguing about it. But the 2015 Black Ball is as profound as we've been able to put a Riesling in. Like it, you can drink it now. It's beautiful. It's a warm vintage, so it's a very very generous vintage. But just to give you a perspective, that Black Ball just got released in the fall of 2020. So it took 5 years for us to release it, which the longer the time between harvest and release, you can count that as a reflection of how serious we think the wine is. So you can definitely enjoy it now, but you can definitely put it aside for 10 to 20 years. It's it's a personal soulful experience.
Sounds amazing. And so would you say in a nutshell then the Black Ball is kind of the pinnacle of what you do for Riesling?
With Riesling, yeah.
So, and then the Va-et-Vient and the Oxide, they're different purpose, right?
The Oxide is from a new vineyard that we took over in 2018. I imagine you have the 2019 vintage. So it's a vineyard that we now have the lease for 10 years. And it's on like...
We're doing the 2018, just so
18,
you know.
18 Oxide.
Okay.
Just until tomorrow night, so don't worry, we won't drink all of it.
Here's a story about the 2018 Oxide, the first Oxide that's ever been produced. Normally, in terms of bottlings, Francois and I keep 2 cases from the front of the bottling line, meaning the first 2 cases that come out, and the last 2 cases that come out. Like, so 48 cases altogether that goes in our personal cellar. The only wine, like, they go in the basement of the house that I'm in. The only wine where both first and last, as we call it, is being drunk within a year is the 2018 Oxide. I am beyond, like, I was, and I'm beyond obsessed with that wine. But I was so passionate about it that now we can't get any, because it's sold out, can't get any more access to it. And what's in library is minute, so we don't want to touch it because it is so serious, but it's so giving. But if there was ever a wine, apart from the Black Ball, where I left parts of my soul in, is the 2018 Oxide. Like, if you, I'm not saying that just to be like, you know, wine marketing, whatever. I don't care about that. Like, I have, like, both me and Francois have no access to 2018 Oxide. So if you have 20 Oxide with you, count yourself extremely lucky and be completely assured that wine will live for ages. But I quoted, if I remember correctly, it's a teardrop of a wine, and in that teardrop there is all the galaxies in the world. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wine. So I'm actually quite envious.
We'll make sure that we'll be in touch with you regardless, because we need to do more of that. I need to talk more with you. I think you're probably the only person on that planet who can talk wine more than I can. And it's actually, and our members, through this date, our member didn't thought it exists. But
Carl went live 5 times this year for over 5 hours.
Amazing.
5-hour live, tasting 30 to 40 wines live, but yeah, no, you're right up there, Svetlana. the depth of our conversation are just phenomenal. I like real stuff, and I felt like I felt in trance half of our conversation. Thank you for taking me. Thank you for taking me there. It was an amazing place to be. I had like it's a very special moment that I just had here. Even if we're apart in the country, we're like, but this was really, really special. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
This is like these are such kind words, and like for me, it is so lovely because before I even met either one of you, I remember Milton sending me your impressions of the 2017 this November, and me looking at them, I'm like, oh, look at that! Like somebody got them, like, but fully without any context or without any like in-person exposure either to me or Francois. And what we do is about that power. It's not about our power, it's about the power of the wine. But it is so rare to see somebody like fully affected by the wines, and not by the name or whatever it is, or like just it is very obvious when somebody's responding to the wine rather to anything else. And I remember when Milton sent us this, I'm like, okay. So when you reached out, I was so looking forward to this, and now that feeling, if anything, it's been multiplied 1,000 times. So thank you, like not only for the support, but for being the people that you are. And I'm so very much looking forward to many more of those conversations.
Thank you so much.
Us too. Amazing. So great. Thank you so much.
And we'll be in touch, and hopefully our government and the health situation around the country will allow us to do our trip in April. And so we'll reserve some time to spend time at the winery with you. Thank you.
You guys have my contact anytime.
Thank you, Svetlana.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening. Thank you for staying up so late with us and sharing so generously with your knowledge and your passion.
And honestly, like feel free anytime you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out. I will share anything that I know and what inspires everything that we do.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it. Have an amazing
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Holy
wow, that was so cool.
Holy shit. I am like, I have a permanent goosebump, a permanent like skin body reaction right now. It's like, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Elaine Bruce was saying, you're so quiet, Carl. And I was like, no, I think he's just entranced. It's just so
I was entranced. I was literally in that wine, like the Matrix, that dimension, that wine dimension where nothing else around. Like I was traveling between vintages, between vessels, between aromas, and it was fucking weird. It was in the greatest sense of all. It was just like, okay, excuse me, maybe you never got that before, but in my early adult age or late teenage years when I took LSD, it's called the LSD, to go watch Pink Floyd concert at the Big O at the Olympic Stadium, and with that anyway, I kind of had that weird entrance kind of thing. It was okay. It was a moment here, Mira. It was a real moment. Wow. Thank you,
this
Milton.
Was Carl before I met him.
Like definitely. We're talking 25 years ago. It was 19. That was the year that you moved to Canada. Yes. Okay. Yes. That was 1994 at the Olympic Stadium when Pink Floyd came for the Division Bell tour. And I was 18 years old at the time. I remember I took a pill of LSD and we went to the Pink Floyd concert, absolutely lit up and like walk, like, you know, I was in trance, and that's how I kind of felt in the last 2 hour, 15 minutes. Comfortably numb. Exactly, Greg. You got it, Kelly. Comfortably numb. And when they
Yes,
played,
Mario, I gave him time to, come into the vintage. We don't release Carl into the world until he's ready. Just like Pearl Morissette with their wines.
oh my God, it was special. What a conversation. Amazing. Whew.
Yeah.
I just remembered, like at some point I came back on Earth in our dimension here, and I remember, we have 3 kids sitting here on the floor in the living room asking for dinner. Mom, Dad, hey, I'm hungry.
No, we fed them before, Carl. They're fine. But yes, we should go and have a great evening with them. And I cannot wait to taste this Lemberger now. Finally, you got.
I
to
know.
Taste it.
I had a splash of it this last summer. I knew there was something unique in there. And guys, it doesn't exist anymore. So we're going to send an email tomorrow morning with tasting notes from the wineries, with some quote from Svetlana in that email. And yeah, Oxid, she left her soul in that, part of her soul in that bottle. You cannot find that wine anymore, not even in her basement. So yeah, there's a couple wines in there that you guys have to get your hands on. So yeah, I think that our credit card bill will be fairly higher tonight while I go to bed than it was.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, Carl Boucher, because I was thinking the same thing.
Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Carl's Wine Club members, Canadian wine lovers, thank you for tuning in. It was a special moment. We'll see you next time.
Cheers. All right.